So I was at home and kind of started to get a little bit restless and was thinking I wanted to do another video. Um, had thought about it earlier when I was at the cemetery, but then didn't know what I wanted to talk about. Um, Last night I pulled some oracle cards. I think it was from a deck called the Divine Masters Oracle, something to that effect, by Kyle Gray. And I don't remember exactly what it said, but it talked about having to face your fear. Something about you're going to feel both fear and love, and it's just part of part of the human experience. it Every time I get one of these cards and something pops out in a certain kind of way, like that one did. It's the new deck, so I'm not really overly familiar with it. But it's like every time one of the cards that comes up for me in a day seems like a bit of a contrast to the others that I've pulled. It always hits me like, is this a sign of what's getting ready to come up? We're getting ready to have to deal with like some fear or something again, because I hadn't felt like I was having to deal with any kind of fear per se. And fairly calm and collected, I'd like to think. But I pulled this card and it was talking about being able to have the fullness of the human experience. And I wrote it down in a couple places and kind of set it aside, and then I went into the kitchen where my mom was sitting at the table, and she tried to talk me into going in there and visiting. And I have kind of a weird relationship with my parents right now, whole family actually, and I think it has amplified a lot in the time that I've started to be aware of my energy and the fact that I needed to protect it and set boundaries. And, I think back to the times that I've heard people talking about the people that have problems with you setting boundaries are the very reason you need to have boundaries in the first place. And yeah, that's my family. So I went out into the kitchen and I was talking to my mom a little bit. And then she all at once detoured and started talking about this thing she'd seen one of my cousins had posted and how weird it was, and she wanted to show me. It's like, oh crap. So she proceeds to go on TikTok and spent a lot of effort trying to pull up this particular cousin's page. And just so she could find me this video to show me that was so weird. And it's kind of funny because two of the letters in my cousin's name that she really needed to be able to find her don't even work on my mom's computer right now. She ended up going into Facebook to copy and paste her name so she could put it from Facebook to TikTok, because she couldn't type in any of the name. And I was just kind of like, that should be a sign that you shouldn't be doing this. But she proceeds, and she showed me a couple that were not the ones she was talking about, but just so I could understand how weird my cousin was being. And I was like, she's trying to do something rather than just sitting around being depressed all the time because she lost her husband, and there's been a lot of other stuff with that. What good is it? Like, seriously, the sole purpose of her wanting to find that was basically to point out how weird it was. And of course, the whole time I've been doing this YouTube thing, like, my videos will pop up as I'm scrolling through, like, other pages that I'm commonly on, and that's a weird feeling, but it always brings up this moment of, oh, I hope this doesn't come across theirs, because I really just don't want to deal with my family knowing that I'm trying to do this thing. And I don't even know what exactly it is, other than being led by the universe, my intuition, divine guidance, whatever, that I need to start using my voice. And a lot of my videos have dealt with crazy stuff within my family, or like coping through some stuff that has happened, like especially when I started in the fall, because there was like so much of that I had to get out of my system to be able to move forward into the new. Trying to make sense of whatever it is the universe has in mind for me to be doing. Because as I've said many times, I'm not about to say that I think it's there yet. Obviously not. I had a dream before I started this second round of videos, and a girl in my dream told me that I needed to start sharing the story that I already had, and it would take a while to build momentum, so I needed to start. And I knew exactly why I was having this dream and what I was needing to do as far as, starting this again and talking again, and not closing back down, as would be very easy to do. Because this has been quite a process. And overcoming just my own negative tendencies, and back when I started in the fall, it was a little different from the standpoint of I wasn't actively trying to protect my energy at that time either, because I didn't really know that was a thing I needed to focus on doing. So as I have, I'm at the point now where I have my red jasper on a copper chain and the Shiva Lingam, and those two I sleep in. And then I have to have at least the red jasper on before I will encounter or just talk to anybody, even in my family. It's like if I go from my room to the bathroom's where I have my necklaces hanging up, and one of the first things I do is put them on, because I don't want to be around anybody without them. But I had the black obsidian, Mookite jasper, and bloodstone, My earrings, the black ones, are obsidian as well, so I try to keep them on a lot as well. But I'm very much trying to be proactive on protecting my energy. And it's kind of funny because when I went to get my nose pierced back in August, I had wanted to get this onyx stone, and for whatever reason, I did not do it. I think there again, since I was not protecting my energy at that time, I was swayed by somebody else's energy. I knew I didn't want 2 rubies, which I do have one, but, well, it's a fake ruby, but still. I wanted the onyx, and for whatever reason, I did not follow through on it, even though I had looked online for a while and was very sure that I wanted to get the onyx stone. And I think if I would have then, it would have made a difference, because onyx is a protective stone and it is big for grounding. So when I went to get my more ear holes done a week and a half ago, I got tiger's eye, which is the conch piercing in there. So if nothing else, I always have that, and now the onyx nose ring that I wanted to start with but didn't. So I had to change it out last time I went. But those would have been a help on it back then. But I didn't have them. So since I have been more proactive on prioritizing having protective stones and stuff, it's like I feel really detached from the drama in my family. And for a while, anytime religion or politics come up, I just automatically walk out of the room, because it's like, I'm not telling anybody that they can't listen to or watch whatever they want to. I just know it's not something I want any part of, so I walk away. And yeah, both my parents make a lot of comments about how I just don't like being around them anymore or whatever. And my mom was talking to my brother. He was on the phone on speaker, and she made a big point to talk about how was it that came up? Something about not resenting her, but something with not wanting to be around her. But she made a big deal about it, or I don't know. I just know it annoyed me, and I walked off as she was starting to do it, because I already knew where she was going. So I went outside with the dogs. I can't remember the word she used. I feel like it started with a D, but for whatever reason, it's just not with me. But there's been a lot of this stuff. And with my cousin and her social media stuff, it's like, this is exactly why I'm not trying to allow anybody in my close circle to know anything about what I'm doing. No. That sounds like a terrible idea. And I pulled another one of those cards today that was talking about facing your fear, because only after you look your fear in the face and see it for what it is, can you become fearless and it won't affect you anymore. It's like, well, on that end, I guess that makes sense that this whole thing is coming up. But I'm kind of like, I don't know. I feel like I'm just throwing it out there. All right, universe, you gotta help me protect this from my family until the time is right. And that is not right now. At least I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I don't know. The crazy thing is, like, I had a conversation with my dad back in the fall, I think, where I just started telling him all my thoughts on, like, religion and spirituality and all this stuff, and he's agreeing with it, and then turns around and goes back to the religious crap that's very anti that later. It's like, no, you don't get it. There's a bunny. But that was like the first time in a long time my dad and I had had an actual conversation. And we haven't had another one since. And I think it goes back to the whole boundaries thing, really, because he started sending me all these, like, memes and YouTube videos and things that were very religiously oriented or politically focused. And like I said, I want no part of either of those things. I don't think they're healthy. And they only have negative to offer in my personal experience of them. So I want no part of watching the videos. And you know, my mom and I have told him multiple times, don't send me that shit. I don't want it. Do not want it. Especially when it would be part of, like, a big group that he would send it to. And, like, random people with my mom's sisters, my cousin's husband, who just married into the family back in May, and just random people. And, you know, his sister, brother, whatever. You know, I think I mentioned this in another video. I had this little, it was like 4 different things that were happening at the exact same time, but it was all just like a zoomed out and zoomed in kind of view on it. And the first was the deal with, or one of these situations with my dad. And he sent this video in a chain and with a bunch of other stuff. And he started spouting off like he's trying to save the world. And then my uncle started chiming in on it. And I responded. I was just like, take it to your personal conversation. Not everybody wants to be a part of this. And from there, my brother got in my face. Well, we were texting, and at first he was kind of poking fun at my dad in the whole situation. And then when I said what I did, he freaked out and called my mom, who was taking a nap. Otherwise, she would have been aware of what was going on anyway. But the whole reason he said anything to my mom was because he thought I was out of line for trying to enforce my boundaries and push back, because I've tried to set boundaries multiple times and they've been disrespected multiple times. And that was the last thing. But, you know, then I looked to how, you know, this deal with my dad, how it's connected with stuff with religion and religious viewpoints, and how I don't even know how to approach this one, but I'm working with not holding a grudge against the religion that I came out of, because when I was going through my divorce, I realized how the church had a huge role to play in why I felt so stuck and allowed myself to be treated essentially like a doormat, and then couldn't get out of it. So then there was also this other deal where another guy was asking me if I thought I might be overdoing it with the protective stones, because if I'm blocking everything out, it's blocking literally everything out. It's like, you know what? This is like the church aspect of it is the all the way zoomed out part, because the church has had such a say throughout an extensive period of time, where it has its good points, and there are things from my life that I appreciated having the church in my life for that time, because it did help me learn and grow in various ways. But I can also look at it and be aware of the detrimental aspects that basically I feel like have held vast numbers of people hostage in a way, because they get so set on, we've heard that this is the way it has to be, and anything else will send you to hell. And it doesn't look at the fact that it's treating people or teaching people that they have to expect to be treated like doormats, because there's that whole martyrdom consciousness, and, well, just expect that bad things are going to happen because people didn't like Jesus, and blah blah blah. But it is simultaneously creating this dynamic where the followers largely have this victim mentality, and also, particularly in leadership, not all leaders, but there's a big narcissistic aspect in a lot of church leaders, and claim that they're doing God's work, but that somehow makes it acceptable to bully people under them. Like I said, not every situation. However, a lot of situations throughout history. And I remember my first semester in seminary, I had to take this history of Christianity class. And it was like through 1500 or whatever. And we were talking about the Crusades. And, you know, think about, I've heard other times throughout the time I was in church where you're supposed to go out and like mission trips, going out to save the world, right? I've been on a couple. They were fine, but at a grander scale, you get little kinks in the system, and then suddenly you have huge groups of people that get slaughtered because, well, they're already going to hell, so they won't choose our way, so we'll just off them. They get me in. But, you know, that whole thing, it started with actually a guy in the spirituality community, not Christian community, that asked if I was too concerned about protecting my boundaries and allowing and how it might prevent all things and not just the bad things. And that is exactly why I stopped wearing my obsidian all the time after I started, because I started with the obsidian necklace back in 2020 when I realized it worked to kind of repel my ex, energetically speaking, because he was showing up in dreams for a while and I got sick of it. So then there were like some people that I would encounter at work, and so I started wearing the obsidian all the time and saging myself with the sage spray, and it worked. But then somebody comes along and says, well, aren't you going a little overboard and you're gonna block everything out? And I don't think that's the case, honestly. Because the more I am actively and effectively shielding myself and protecting my boundaries and learning what works for me or what doesn't work for me, I feel like my sense of who I am and who I came here to be is getting clearer. I still have a lot of stuff to work through. You know, and I mentioned in another video that if you allow just anybody to have access to your energy, you basically set yourself up for energetic parasites. Even if the person you're sharing your energy with is otherwise a good person, if they're latched onto it all the time, you get pulled into their drama. Nobody needs that. And it does. It creates an energetic parasite. And I don't want a part of that. I don't want my energy to go where it's not supposed to go. I want, I feel like we came here, okay, we are all aspects of the divine. And we all have a specific thing that we're here to do. And part of the journey is to figure out what that is when we do have other people pulling on our energy all the time. Because like the whole the collective okay. I don't even know. Like with my family and the boundary stuff, it's like as I start branching out into this thing that I don't know what I'm doing right now, this is just a step on the path. I know that much. I don't know how long I'll be doing it. I might find the next thing and drop it all together. I don't know. For now, it is how I have to it's a means of practicing sharing my voice and getting used to figuring out what I'm trying to talk about or what I want to say. Like the girl in my dream said, you have a story, you have to share the story you have, and then it will start to come together, and then it will gain momentum. But it was all in a matter of starting. So this was my start. But then the whole boundary thing, it's like my family is, whether they know it or not, actively trying to keep me from moving beyond what I've always been, because that's what I was supposed to do with my life, right? Yeah, venture on and do the other things, but still be around to take care of family, because that is the priority. Even though it comes down to never living my own life, I am not okay with that. And thus far, I think that's a big part of why I've made it to 40 before I've started piecing things together, especially when I wasn't protecting my energy before. And with all my cancer placements, losing sight of what's mine to begin with, it's just I don't even know. I was restless when I came over here. I wanted to talk about something, then I started talking, and now it's like I feel all discombobulated again. And I think it all comes back down to the fact that it is something new, and I don't know where it's going. I mean, I have some ideas for why I feel like it's important and why it's a part of my path. But still, there's that ongoing thing where I think a lot of us that are trying to ascend, trying to grow spiritually and in any other way we can, get pulled back down because the collective wound doesn't like the fact that people are starting to shine a little brighter and be able to look at the problem and say, hey, this is not a good thing. And they're trying to prevent that from happening, even though they're not entirely aware of what's even happening on that end. Is energetically there's a shift and you can feel it. And I know my dad's had some stuff that he'll play where it's talking about like the Rona and who's to blame, blah blah blah, and it's like, I feel like it's a part of this ascension process, and there are a lot of people that may be so dead set on clinging to the heavier negativity aspects, to avoid making the ascension, or trying to keep the earth from being able to ascend as well. Yeah. But I feel like the whole fact that we had this big thing that took a lot of people out, and there was an energetic shift, with how many people were leaving the earth at one time. And, my dad's watching this stuff where it's talking about the next one and how these people will probably be the blame for it. But it's like, when I started really paying attention to, like, okay, 37s, that was where it started in like November, December, January. But I really noticed it December and January, like it set in hard. And then I realized that's my grandpa's, or my great grandpa's number. So his birthday was March 7th, so I see 37, and that's a way that he can communicate with me. Now that it's 37 minutes on the video, that's a way where I can feel his presence and get messages through that. And I see it everywhere still. But it never occurred to me until January, when I started taking the God sign class, that it was him checking in. Like, it never occurred to me that he would. Because death was this big traumatic thing when I was 7, and I was terrified of death for the longest time. And now that I'm realizing how surrounded I am with friends and family members on the other side, I realize it's the human suit is basically a rental car, as Lenita said. You're a soul in a human body, not a human body with a soul. Well, I mean, kind of, but the soul goes on even after the body is gone. And I feel like realizing that, making that connection, has shifted the way I see things. Especially yesterday's video when I was talking about Tyler, and like the stuff where I've seen his numbers so prominent in my life, and realizing that it is a connection. Like I knew his death date. That was the one that was most prominent for a while, because that's 7/19, 7/19. When I knew that 4/29, which was his birthday, is also one that could be used, but 7/19 always got my attention more, because that was more of a trigger for me, because his death changed so much. And then when I talked to Annie the other day, she asked me how old he was when he died, and I said 34, and she said that'll be another number that he uses. I got to my car, and there's a 34 on the license plate. It's like, oh. So he's basically with me all the time anyway. um, yeah, but you know, when we're in these human bodies, we try so hard to resist being who we actually came to be. You know, and some of it's the karmic patterning, and we get caught up and bogged down in all the ish. But you know, I know my own life has been trying to figure me out was huge. That's always been one of the biggest things that I've known I'm here to do. And you know, when you are so busy trying to conform to what the world wants you to believe of yourself, it doesn't give you the space to become what you're meant to be and who you're meant to be. And I feel like that's a lot of like what these shifts are. Oh yeah, so 37, when I started seeing that, my immediate thought, because I also pulled a card around the time that talked about paying attention to what season you're in. And I immediately was thinking that it had something to do with death. My mom's parents were in and out of the hospital 4 times between the two of them. From December and January, and that of course was when I seen the number 37 the most. So my first thought was them, but it ended up being one of my uncles ended up passing away first, and he was a good guy, he was entertaining, but he was one of the more negative people that I've known in my lifetime. And every time we were around him, it's, how you doing? Oh, not a damn bit of good. And it's like, is there anything you have to look forward to? Or is this just life sucks and blah, blah, blah? And it always went negative as soon as you asked him anything on that end. And so when he ended up in the hospital, it was a weird thing, because then it's like, so I was warned that something was going to happen. I don't want to be aware of anytime somebody in particular is going to die. And I struggled, because it's like, I feel like some part of my purpose is in helping others heal. And it's like, how can you do that? One of the things that I was shown with him particularly was, you can't interfere with other people's soul lessons, like what they came here to learn. You can't tamper with that. Leave that alone. That's for them. You know, and there's a couple other people. One was a coworker that passed, and then another was a really good family friend. And it's just like, this is through March, and there's already 3 people, and not just 3 people, because I also had, I mean, these are kind of lesser relevant, but still relevant, because it is still death. I had a gecko that died, a bird, and my aunt had a cat that she also lost. It's just like, this is a lot of death for this year already. And you know, we're just, you know, and the last one that died was a really good family friend. And he had a lot of stuff that was kind of going haywire in the past few years. But his did kind of hit a little harder because when I was 8, I almost drowned in the ocean in an undertow. And he saved me. And my dad. He saved us both because we both got caught in it. Couldn't get out of it. But that was kind of a weird thing to sit with. But I don't know. I don't know if this is even one I'm going to end up posting because now I've gone in circles all over the place and I'm at 46 minutes and I don't know if I'm any better than I was when I came over here. Slightly less agitated, slightly more agitated. Agitated differently. So I don't know. So I may or may not post this. If I do, and you made it this far, I appreciate you. And if I don't, maybe it'll get channeled into what I was working on writing, but then was too agitated to continue on. I don't know. Anyway, it's getting late and I'm over here far longer than I anticipated. And my dogs probably miss me, so yeah. Bye.